Vatican II ruined everything. Here's why. Before I begin my rant about how the Second Vatican Council ruined everything, please allow me to clarify what I am not doing. I am not making a nuanced and heavily cited theological critique about this thing or that thing that can be found in the documents. Also, I am not wading into the debate as to whether one can stand on his head after spinning in circles and use a thesaurus to come to the conclusion that a particular phrase could be seen as orthodox as long as there is a full moon. Frankly, Vatican II proponents have been doing this for 50 years, and they can continue doing so if they wish until the point where basically no one finds what they say relevant. Even if it was possible to squint and find orthodoxy in the documents in a technical sense, that does not mean the documents aren't conducive to error or harm. For example, if I was to say, it cannot be said that I am not saying something that should be said about a time that was in a particular moment a relevant era for the progression of that which is dynamic and motivating, about the arc of the historical reality of the moment in which the Church has come to find her true identity in the faith that beats in the heart of the faithful. Then I would have said nothing technically wrong, but I would have said basically nothing at all, and I would have said something that would confuse believers and adherents to what I wrote, and it would be easy for a modernist to cite my words improperly, and I would at least indirectly be the cause of scandal, ambiguity, and confusion. Furthermore, I am not saying that everything was hunky-dory before the Council. It was not. Of course it was not. Otherwise, St. Pius X would not have needed to give us his scathing rebuke of modernism, which by that point was at least decades old. Now, what am I doing? First, I should define what I mean by Vatican II. I believe it was a valid ecumenical council, and I also believe what the two popes who oversaw it said about it, in that it was not definitively dogmatic in all cases and that it was pastoral. What does that mean? I have no idea, and I don't think anyone really does, which is one of the reasons things have been such a disaster. Second, I will not separate the quote-unquote spirit of Vatican II from the letter of Vatican II. That is what Pharisees do. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, because you are like to whited sepulchres, which outwardly appear to men beautiful, but within are full of dead men's bones, and of filthiness. Matthew chapter 23, verse 27. Even if the letter is good, but the spirit is rotten, then I want nothing to do with it, for the letter killeth, but the spirit giveth life. And by Vatican II, I am ultimately referring to that paradigm that followed the Council, which I believe is fair. For example, although the Novus Ordo is not technically the liturgy found in the documents of the Council, it is the conciliar liturgy, which is to say the liturgy that came from the amorphous time in history that we call the Vatican II paradigm. We are living in a paradigm of awful liturgy, bad theology, corrupt morality, dubious ecclesiology, and utter confusion, and it was all given a stamp of approval in the Church at some point in history, starting in the 1960s, at Vatican II. Now that the primer is out of the way, the following are, in my opinion, the two main problems whereby Vatican II has directly or indirectly ruined everything: the liturgy and the absence of anything truly pastoral. Some will retort and say that the new Mass was not the Mass of Vatican II. Yes, technically the Novus Ordo is not found in the documents, but the new Mass was created in response to the call to reform the liturgy, which emanated from the liturgical writings in the Council, and the Pope of the Council promulgated the Mass in the immediate aftermath of Vatican II. Do the math. While it is true that liturgical reform is nothing new, it is also true that the manifest intention behind the implementation of the Novus Ordo was to imbibe a Protestant spirit in the faithful. Don't believe me? Think I am some rad trad who is a malcontent about most things modern? Well, I am a bit of a malcontent at times, but notwithstanding my being such a way, I am not making it up. The original document that instructed the Church on the raison d'être behind the new Mass, the 1969 Institutio Generalis Missalis Romani, the original general instruction of the Roman Missal, stated the following in paragraph 7. The Lord's Supper, or Mass, is the sacred meeting or congregation of the people of God assembled, the priest presiding, to celebrate the memorial of the Lord. For this reason, Christ's promise applies eminently to such a local gathering of Holy Church. Where 2 or 3 come together in my name, there am I in their midst. Matthew chapter 18, verse 20. It does not say the Lord's Supper or Mass is representative of the sacred meeting, or something to that effect. It is plain as day and says the Mass is a meeting or congregation of the people of God. I will take things that are heretical and belong to Luther's diabolical heresy for 200, Alex. Now, That definitional statement about the very nature of the Mass was swiftly changed, but it did no good and was revealing. It did no good because the proverbial cat was out of the bag, and it was a Protestant cat who looked to a faux consubstantial Eucharist. It did no good because, as Paul VI said on Holy Thursday 1969, a practically schismatic ferment divides, subdivides, splits the Church. It does not matter that the general instruction was changed, because the general instruction showed what the reformers, revolutionaries, wanted to imbibe in the faithful. Who would have thought a liturgy drawn up, partly on a napkin, by a man who was almost certainly a Freemason, with the help of a half-dozen Protestant ministers, could have been done with the intent to imbibe religious indifferentism and Protestant theology in the faithful? I know, what a stretch. There is a story wherein St. Philip Neri taught a woman the danger of gossip by asking her to buy him a chicken in the market, and while walking, pluck it en route to deliver it to him. When she arrived, he told her to go and get the feathers and bring them to him, which she knew was impossible. She finally understood the dangers of something quote-unquote getting out there, as it is impossible for it all to be retrieved and cleaned up. The Protestant theology was baked into the cake, and the ideas of the revolutionaries were out there for all to see, and no amount of revisions would be able to gather up those heretical feathers. Considering the fact that the vast majority of Catholics get their religion from Sunday Mass, it is not a stretch at all, to suggest that the Vatican II inspired recovation of the Mass did great harm to the Church and the souls who left, or were subsequently malformed due to the lex orandi flowing from the Protestant-imbibed, Freemasonically constructed liturgy that was shoved down their throats. Nothing pastoral at all. We have been told that Vatican II was pastoral enough times that we are probably sick of hearing it. If we have issues with its orthodoxy, then we needn't worry because it was pastoral. If we don't understand why the catechisms were obliterated or the Mass was destroyed, or a zillion Catholics left the Church, don't worry, it was pastoral. But the fact is, Vatican II was anything but pastoral. As a pastor is a shepherd, and a shepherd is only a good shepherd, which is to say a shepherd at all, as a bad shepherd is not what he claims to be, if he leads and protects the sheep. A pastor cannot shepherd his sheep if his sheep are confused about what sheep should do or what pastors believe. A flock cannot be shepherded by a pastor if the pastor refuses to define the boundaries of the pasture or to definitively tell the sheep not to dine with the wolves. And wayward sheep will not stay in the fold if the shepherd uses his crook to beat down the traditional sheep, who present themselves as obstacles to ecumenical gatherings with the fox and the coyote. You would not say, if you saw a shepherd directing his flock off a cliff, "Don't worry, he is just shepherding them." Or, imagine you saw the shepherd relieving his sheepdogs of their duty and then leave his sheep outside where the wolves like to roam. We certainly would not say that this pastor was being pastoral. If anything, we would say he was being an idiot, and has lost the moral authority to shepherd the flock he has abandoned to slaughter. Although it is technically true that the popes have said that Vatican II was pastoral in a technical sense, it is definitely not the case that the Vatican Council contributed to the pastoring of the Church. The proponents of the Council like to say that the Council simply opened up the windows to let the Church out, as if she was artificially enclosed in a prison of her own making, but are often baffled by the fact that all we have seen is the smoke of Satan wafting into the sanctuary after the pastors defenestrated themselves in droves. Some council-splainers will console each other and opine that although a reasonable person may be of the theological opinion that the council was implemented imprudently, they will question the idea that the council or its mass may truly have forced the sheep to leave the flock. As, after all, everyone who left or became a heretic did so on their own accord and by their own free will. Perhaps they should have just read a different interpretation of Lumen Gentium. I have also heard that there are parents who send their Catholic children to state schools and then are confused when they put their pronouns in their bio and refuse to have a hair color not found in the rainbow. If people want to prattle on about the real Vatican II or the Reverent Novus Ordo, which can only be reverent in aesthetic but not immune from the Protestant spirit branded onto the thing, then so be it. But I will end with a quote from C.S. Lewis, who ironically is likely more Catholic in spirit as an Anglican than the spirit of Vatican II. Quote, "We all want progress, but progress means getting nearer to the place where you want to be. And if you have taken a wrong turn, then to go forward does not get you any nearer. If you are on the wrong road, progress means doing an about turn and walking back to the right road, and in that case the man who turns back soonest is the most progressive man. There is nothing progressive about being pig-headed and refusing to admit a mistake. And I think if you look at the present state of the world, it's pretty plain that humanity has been making some big mistakes. We're on the wrong road, and if it is so, we must go back. Going back is the quickest way on. Hear, hear, Lewis. Switch the word humanity for church, and we have got a prophecy on our hands.